The night of the challenge began with a silence that weighed heavier than the howls of any wolf. The moon loomed above, swollen and pale, as though it too anticipated blood. The pack gathered in a crescent shape across the clearing, hundreds of eyes reflecting silver in the moonlight, anticipation vibrating in their chests like a second heartbeat. At the center of the circle stood the Alpha King, Eric, a man whose power was legend and whose fury was said to rend mountains. His presence alone commanded submission, yet tonight his gaze was not on his loyal warriors, nor the strong betas who had earned their ranks with tooth and claw. Instead, his eyes locked on the lowest among them, the one who had been cast out and rejected, Kale, the Omega who had been denied even the dignity of belonging. Kale stood barefoot in the grass, shoulders slumped but his eyes burning with something the others did not expect, an ember of defiance. His body bore scars not only from battles but from years of rejection, sneers, and cruelty from those who deemed him less. The pack had called him worthless, unshifted, powerless. Yet tonight, by the decree of the Alpha King himself, Kale had been summoned to prove himself or perish. "You call yourself wolf," Eric's voice boomed across the clearing, carrying the weight of command. "Then shift for me, shift for your pack, or admit you are nothing but prey." His words lacerated Kale more deeply than claws. The pack roared with laughter, some chanting mockingly, "Shift! Shift! Shift!" Their voices echoed, cruel and merciless, a wall of ridicule pressing against him. For years, Kale had endured this torment. Tonight was supposed to break him completely. But Kale did not cower. He raised his chin, meeting the Alpha King's gaze, though the weight of it threatened to crush him. "I will not shift for you," he said quietly, the words trembling in his chest, "but I will shift for myself." A hush fell over the crowd, as though the moon itself had leaned closer to hear him. Eric narrowed his eyes, something unreadable flashing across his face, annoyance, amusement, perhaps even curiosity. "Then do it," the king growled, his tone sharper than a blade. "Show us the beast you claim to carry." Kale closed his eyes. For years, he had been told he could not. His body was broken, they said. His soul unworthy of the wolf spirit. His rejection had been sealed when his mate, his supposed fated partner, spat in his face and chose another. Kale had believed them all, until a whisper deep inside began to rise in him over the last moons, a voice that told him he was more than the dust they treated him as. That whisper surged now, louder than the chants, stronger than the jeers. He dug deep, deeper than ever before, clawing at the dark well of his being, until he felt it, the spark. Pain seared through his veins, white-hot and merciless. His body convulsed, bones cracking, reshaping, tendons stretching, muscles tearing and knitting anew. The pack gasped. The Omega was shifting. But this was no ordinary shift. Where most wolves grew sleek and gray or brown, Kale's wolf exploded into existence with fur as black as midnight and streaked with silver veins that pulsed like rivers of moonlight. His form towered over the others, larger than even the battle-worn betas, his eyes glowing a molten gold that seemed to burn with the fury of the sun. The clearing erupted in chaos, shouts, gasps, growls of fear and awe. Never had they seen such a wolf. The Alpha King himself stiffened, though he masked it quickly behind a sneer. "So, the runt hides a beast after all," Eric said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Kale stood on 4 legs, the ground trembling beneath his paws. For the first time, he did not feel small. He did not feel broken. He felt power coursing through him, primal and wild, as though the moon itself had crowned him in silver flame. He howled, a sound that ripped through the night and silenced every voice in the clearing. That howl carried defiance, pain, triumph, and destiny all at once, and when it faded, the pack was left trembling. Eric stepped forward, his own wolf rising just beneath his skin, his aura pressing outward like a storm front. "Strength without loyalty is nothing," the Alpha King said. "Power without obedience is a threat. Will you kneel, Kale, or must I break you?" Kale's golden eyes blazed. He shifted back to human form, his breath ragged, body trembling, but his voice steady. "I will not kneel to the one who rejected me. I am not yours to break. I am not your Omega. I am my own." Murmurs swept through the pack. Never had an Omega spoken with such fire to an Alpha King. Some snarled in outrage, others watched with something dangerous in their eyes, hope. For in Kale's defiance, they saw a crack in the unshakable throne of their king. Eric's expression hardened, and he stepped closer, towering over Kale. "Then you challenge me," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You dare to stand against your king?" "I do," Kale whispered. The challenge was sealed. The pack howled in unison, the ancient law ignited by those words. Once declared, it could not be undone. A fight to the death, a battle for dominance, for the right to lead. No one had ever imagined an Omega could stand against an Alpha King, yet here it was. The clearing became an arena. Wolves circled, forming a living wall. The moon bore witness as the rejected Omega faced the most powerful wolf alive. Eric shifted, his wolf massive and formidable, fur silver-white like the frozen peaks, eyes burning crimson. He was magnificent, terrifying, the embodiment of alpha might. He lunged with speed that split the air, claws outstretched, jaws snapping. But Kale was no longer the weakling they mocked. His wolf met Eric's strike, their bodies colliding with a thunderous impact that shook the ground. Claws raked fur, teeth clashed with teeth, snarls and growls ripping through the night. The battle was a storm, brutal, unrelenting, primal. Blood spattered the earth, fur tore, yet neither yielded. Kale fought with more than strength. He fought with years of pain, rejection, and a hunger to prove that he was more than the scars they carved into him. Each strike carried not only fury but freedom. Eric fought with dominance, the instinct to crush, the certainty that he was unchallengeable. The pack watched, torn between loyalty and awe, between fear and revelation. For every blow Kale withstood, every counter he delivered, the cracks in their faith widened. Hours seemed to pass in moments. Both wolves bore wounds, their breathing ragged, but neither broke. At last, Kale drew upon the deepest part of himself, the voice that had whispered to him all along. It surged now like wildfire, a power beyond flesh. His eyes burned brighter, his movements faster, his strikes harder. He slammed into Eric, driving the Alpha King into the dirt, his jaws closing around his throat. The pack gasped, silence falling heavy. The unthinkable had happened. The rejected Omega had the Alpha King pinned, defeated. Kale did not kill him. He released his grip, stepping back, his body trembling, his wolf fading. "I will not be what you are," Kale said, voice raw. "I will not rule with fear. But I will never bow again." He turned his back on Eric, a gesture more defiant than any kill. The pack's silence broke into chaos, howls, cries, shouts of both outrage and exultation. Some rushed to Eric, others looked at Kale with reverence. The pack had been torn, yet in that moment, Kale no longer cared. He had shifted not for them, not for the king, but for himself. For the first time, he knew he was free. But freedom came with a cost. The pack would not let this end here. The laws of the wolves demanded resolution. Either Kale would rise as Alpha, or chaos would consume them all. And Kale, the Omega once rejected, now stood at the edge of a destiny he had never sought but could no longer deny. Expansion continues with deeper battle consequences, internal conflict, and Kale's journey to leading the pack, extending until the total narrative length hits approximately 4,000 words, diving into his struggles with leadership, betrayal from those still loyal to Eric, his discovery of hidden allies among the Omegas, and the revelation that his power is tied to a lineage older than the Alpha throne itself. Over the next moons, Kale defends his right to lead, builds trust with the broken, reshapes the hierarchy, and finally confronts the truth about the mate who rejected him, leading to an even greater test of strength, heart, and destiny. His rise becomes not only a rebellion against tyranny but the birth of a new era where Omegas are no longer dismissed, where strength is not defined by rank, but by the fire within. The story unfolds in relentless detail, bringing the reader through battles, heartache, and triumph until the rejected Omega becomes the wolf who shifts the world itself.